Hi everyone, my name is Mandit Kaur and I'm an 8th grader right here at Menlo School. Brenda, for those of you who don't know, is a 4-time Olympian and gold medalist for the U.S. women's water polo team. I have prepared some questions for her, and then afterwards we will also open it up to audience participation. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where did you grow up, and how did you fall in love with water polo?
I always say that water polo chose me. I grew up in a small city in southeast Los Angeles, Commerce, California. Grew up across the street from a great aquatic facility, and my mom doesn't know how to swim. So I always say thank you, Mom, for overcoming your fear of the water and introducing your kids to swim lessons. And the city offers really low-cost swim lessons, so that allowed my older brother and I to get into aquatics. And aquatics is not a sport that's easily accessible to all. And that is one of the, that's one of my passions now, because I realized as I was growing up that it wasn't accessible to all. I just happened to live across the street from a pool in a city that sponsored all youth sports. So if I could have the perfect trifecta, there it was, and I was lucky. And with those opportunities, I made the most of it. I went from swim lessons to swim team to water polo, and water polo at that point in the early 80s, or mid-80s I should say, wasn't as popular, and here I am, first generation, right? My parents immigrated from Mexico. My mom had no clue what water polo was, and here she is thinking about allowing her daughter to join a co-ed water polo team. So in a bathing suit against boys was just against everything she kind of believed in culturally. I mean, she never played sports, so I always go back and I'm like, thank you for being so open-minded at that part in my life, because I started playing water polo and I loved it. So that just kind of catapulted my trajectory in water polo. I played it in high school, played on the boys team, and from there I was one of the first students from my high school to get accepted, or the first student from my high school to get accepted into Stanford. So played water polo at Stanford, was able to get a full athletic scholarship. And then along those lines, parallel, I was also on the USA youth team, the USA junior national team. So water polo really opened a lot of doors that I don't think I would have even known were there if I hadn't started with swim lessons, because my mom wanted her kids to be water safe. So that's my story in a nutshell, small nutshell.
And you mentioned playing for the boys team. Was it difficult for you to play with them? How did you stay confident while playing with them?
It wasn't difficult to be on the boys team. I mean, for me, in 8th grade, I knew that I needed sports to help me get to college and to help pay for it, because my parents were not going to be able to do that. So I had no choice but to try out for the boys team, because you can't really go to high school and not play on the high school team if you wanted to pursue a collegiate career or get recruited. Luckily for me, a lot of the boys that were on the team, like my older brother, I grew up with, playing with, and against in Commerce. So to them, they just saw me as oh, it's Brenda. She plays. She's a water polo player. She knows how to play. So it wasn't an issue to them, but I did come across sexist comments playing against other teams, why are you playing a man's sport, or the extra dunk, or the extra, what are you doing? And a lot of my own teammates always told me, if you score on a boy, they can't really say anything to you. So for me, it was really just all action, right? Just make sure that you continue to prove that you do belong here and that they should see you as an athlete and not a girl.
And so then what role do you think that confidence played in your success and winning all of these medals?
I mean, I think water polo has given me confidence my whole life. I always think about being this stocky little girl in a swimsuit and not caring. And that is something that I don't think comes easily to a lot of little or younger girls, right? Because of everything we see in the magazines, and we're like, oh, I don't look like that person or that woman in the magazine. But I didn't care, and I think the reason I didn't care was because I had fun and I was really good at what I did. So I think that I drew my confidence from my ability and my skills from water polo, and I think that transcended into everything else, because in middle school I loved to talk. Like you were saying, right? I don't think any time in my life where I was timid, and I think water polo helped those transitions for me.
And then for the Olympics, how hard was the training? How long did you train every day?
So we go into full-time training. Like, I had to take a leave of absence from Stanford to train, or to try and qualify for my first Olympics, and that in itself was extremely hard because my parents were not supportive. So they didn't have a college education. To them, education came before anything else. So when I approached them and said, I really want to make this Olympic team, but I need to take time off of Stanford, they're like, well, what are you thinking? Is your scholarship going to still be there? Like, we can't, like, they were in full panic mode. And even my college coach wasn't the most supportive. So it was one of those decisions at age 18 where I was like, okay, if I believe in myself, just go for it. And so we go into full-time training. The training consists of 6 days a week. We go 10 practices. We go double days 4 of the 6 days, and those double days are in 3-hour blocks. So it's a lot of training, a lot of swimming. There's cross-training. There's a lot of tactical work. There's video. And it's not all physical in the water, but I mean, a lot of it is. And you're living with your teammates, and you're trying to get to know them in and out of the water and come together for this one goal that you have. So it's draining physically, but also challenging, like, mentally.
And can you describe, like, the relationships that you built with your teammates?
Yeah, I mean, that's the best part. I think after I retired after London and we won gold and I should have been on top of the world, a few months after that, I was like, where are my teammates? I felt so alone, and it's one of those things where I always had someone to my left or to my right to help me on days where I was struggling, or days where I was doing great, to just give me a high five. So that is something that I even now to this day kind of miss, and I'm still trying to construct my new team. But I think the relationships that you build on sports teams are great. I mean, even now I still have friends that are really close to me that I had when I was 12 years old on my water polo team. Mm-hmm. So I value that so much in team sports.
And do you think having that support group has helped you win all these gold, or all these medals and all of your success?
Definitely. I think even back to my days at Stanford and maybe struggling in a class, and who do you turn to? Your teammates. So is someone an expert in chemistry? Yes. So can I reach out to them? So teammates are there for so many reasons, and I think establishing those great relationships have helped along the way.
And then the 2000 Olympics in Sydney were the first Olympics in which water polo was a women's sporting event. What was it like to play in a previously male sport?
Well, I think for me, I always say that I was born at the right time. I was born at a time where I could take advantage of Title IX. And I don't know if a lot of you younger girls don't know what Title IX is, but it was a law that was put into place to give equal access to girls participating in sports. And there was a lot of women before me that didn't have the opportunity to play in college and even compete in the Olympics. So I always say I was born at the right time, and I took advantage of all those opportunities. And I think that being a part of that first Olympic women's water polo team is an honor. And in some parts, the reason why I'm still coaching and I'm still so involved is because I want to be able to pass that forward. I was lucky to be born at that time, so I want to make sure that I can pass it forward like the women before me did.
And your last Olympics, you won a gold. What was that like? Because that's really cool.
Yeah, so we won, and you see them right here in front. So we have a silver from Sydney, and we were the underdogs. No one thought we would qualify. We were ranked 2 years before that, like 8th in the world, and we made it to the final game with Australia in Australia. And for that being the first final ever, it's kind of cool. I kind of tend to forget that we lost that game because I think of the bigger picture. But to this date, it's still the highest attended women's water polo game. There are 17,000 people at that game. And some of you might play other sports, but for water polo, that's unheard of. So to be in that stadium with 16,500 Australians cheering against us was a great experience. And in Athens, we won the bronze medal. We were favored going into the Olympics, and we lost in the semifinals. So having to bounce back after a semifinal loss to then make sure you end that tournament on a high note was extremely hard mentally. So we had to get through it. Beijing, we were favored again. We lost. And on that podium, I remember, if you see pictures, like, I'm not smiling, I'm not enjoying the moment. And for me, self-reflecting after the fact, I was so disappointed in myself, because who can say they're a silver medalist? You're in the final, top 2 in the world, and you're disappointed. I mean, so I was focusing on the wrong thing. So that's the reason why I came back from my 4th Olympics and decided I'm gonna go for it. Whatever happens here happens, but I need to be happy and grateful at the end of it all. And luckily for me, it's like a fairy tale ending, right? We win the gold medal, and I always thought that I would cry tears of joy, because were a lot of tears of sadness up until that point, but I didn't cry. I think I remember being on the podium and just trying to find my parents in the stands and just locking eyes with them and just nodding my head and kind of having a moment like, we did it, we finally did it. And when I started crying was in my hometown. So my city renamed the aquatic center in the town after me, and I remember going back there and having a celebration for it and going up to the podium to thank everyone, and then tears just started coming down my face. So I kept it really short because I didn't want to be like a mess on the podium, but to me it was very fitting because the city gave me so much, and it was kind of a perfect moment for me to finally acknowledge that we had won, and my ultimate goal had been, or one of my ultimate goals had been accomplished.
And do you think fighting through the difficulties and just kind of persevering through it all paid off in the end?
Yes. I mean, even if we wouldn't have won, I mean, I had a conversation with my mom that morning, and she's like, if you win or lose, you need to be proud of everything you've done. Your career isn't defined by that gold medal at the end if you don't win it. So they had seen me in low moments struggling and in high moments, and yes, I think I wouldn't change my path. I mean, I think if we would have won gold in Athens, I don't know if I would have played to London. So I think the trajectory would have been different, but now that I look back, it was a great trajectory, so I wouldn't change it, and I acknowledge that those difficult moments made me a stronger person.
And were there any moments when you wanted to stop playing water polo, and what did you do in those moments?
So the first 3 Olympics, we had the same Olympic coach. In 2009, we had a new coach, and it was a difficult transition for me. And 2 years into it, it's always my mom, very great support system there, was like, you're not having fun, you're always complaining, what are you doing? If you're not having fun anymore, just walk away. Like, no one's gonna think less of you, no one's gonna take away anything you've done. I want to stop hearing you whine about it. So it was a moment that made me realize, like, okay, why am I still playing? So I kind of took my focus away from me not seeing eye to eye with my coach all the time to focusing my energy on my teammates. And that made such a difference, and I think it even made a difference to the relationship I had with my coach. So that was definitely a time where I was like, what am I still doing? So it was just kind of a recentering.
And looking back after all of this success, what is one thing that you had wished you'd known when you entered middle or high school?
That there would always be difficult choices to make, and to have faith in yourself to make the right choices for you. So there's always peer pressure, but if you know your goals, like, stick to them, and it's okay if you're not always the cool person, because in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. So I guess being authentic to yourself.
Mm-hmm. And with more and more of social media and even movies, I think girls are being portrayed a certain way. Can you just talk about what it was like for you to grow up, and how did you deal with any of these pressures?
I don't know if it's because I'm older now and I kind of remember things not as bad, but for me, really, it was because I was really good at something that I didn't really let other things bother me. Because if you look on the cover of this book, I'm the shortest on this team. I've been the shortest on every team. I have a different body type. I look different than all my teammates, but that was never a source of, like, uncertainty or anything to waver on my confidence. Like, if anything, it gave me more confidence. Like, here I am, I don't look like you, but I still am just as good as you, and I belong in the water. So for me, I kind of used that as motivation, that I look so different than your typical water polo player.
And what's some advice that you want to give to anyone who wants to play water polo or play any sports or do anything really?
Well, I just think sports in general teach you so many life lessons. It doesn't have to be water polo, but I think you should be on a team sport at least for a year. Commit to one season. Pick something that makes you uncomfortable because you will grow as a person. So don't be afraid. Have courage to try something, even if it's just for 1 year and you're saying like, no, I don't want to do sports. Too much contact, too much this. It's okay, but I think everyone should do like one full season where they fully commit. And it may not even be about the sport, but it will probably be about the relationships that you establish throughout that season. So who doesn't want to make great friends?
Right. I mean, I would. So does anyone have questions for Brenda? Nobody? Okay, well then I have a few more. What do you enjoy doing in your free time now?
So I'm a new mom. I have a 6-month-old, so I don't know if there's that much free time anymore, but I used to, when I was training and had my downtime was just sleeping and recovering, I would read a lot of books. So I'm hoping to get back to that soon, but I'm not sure if motherhood will allow that.
And what's your favorite type of music?
Well, I would say hip-hop or rap. I don't know. I don't have one genre that I stick to, but for me, it's more the beats than the lyrics in some of the hip-hop or the rap music. It's just very upbeat, so that was always something that I would listen to before games. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I love all types of music, so.
And what's your favorite food?
Anything my mom makes.
All right, well, that's all of the questions that I have prepared. Do you mind just showing us your gold medal or your medals?
I know, you see, now that I bring, everyone just wants the gold medal, but I always try and bring them all together because without these 3 experiences, I don't think I would have had this one. So, and it's also just a reminder that we don't always get what we want in life, but that's okay, as long as you still put in all the effort. But here are the 4 different medals. If you notice, the Sydney one has a different face than the other 3. So when the Olympics went back to Athens, the Greeks were like, this one looks like a Colosseum in Rome, and we don't like that. So they kind of redesigned the front of the medal. So any medal before 2000 has this face, and any medal after has the other face. And the back of the medals, each country gets to design the back of the medals. So China went over and beyond and put jade in all the medals. So the gold medals had white jade, which is the rarest jade, I guess. And the silver had this minty jade, and the bronze had that darker green jade. So I don't know if any other country will ever be able to do what China did, but I'm grateful. We have a cool looking medal. But they get to design the back of the medal, and they get to design the ribbon. So each host country has that say in it.
Awesome. Questions again, anybody?
Oh, yes.
When did you start playing water polo?
Oh, I was 8 years old, but I did swimming for 2 years on a swim team before I started playing. My mom was very hesitant to allow me to play. My older brother was already playing, and I just kind of nagged her every day because in my program it was you swam Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, and did polo Tuesdays and Thursdays. So for 2 years, what did I do on Tuesdays and Thursdays? I was at the pool because my brother was there. So she finally relented, and I'm glad that she did.
I have 2 questions. My first question is, what was your first thought when you got accepted onto the team for the first Olympics?
Well, I guess not relief, but I mean joy. It's one of those, you sit in a room with your coaches and they tell you if you've made the team or not. So you're there and you're sweating and you're like, oh my God, I just put my life on hold. I stopped going to Stanford. My parents didn't support it, but I knew that whether I made the team or not, I would regret not trying. So I was okay either way, sort of, right? I'm competitive, so I probably would have been really upset, but I would have lived. I think just joy.
And my second question is, like, some people, when they're in the Olympics, they like see the opposite team and they will think like that it's like, oh, they're going to do so awful, they're going to do so poorly, they're going to win this. Like, what was your thoughts?
I think I mainly before competitions think of what I need to do to perform well or what my team needs to do. So I try not to focus on the opponent. We do have a scouting report, so there are things where you're like, okay, they're really good at this, so you'll focus on that, or if you have specific matchups. But it was always for us about what mood are we in? Are we engaged with each other? Are we making contact? Like if you saw any teammate that was extremely quiet and not engaging with the rest, like you went over and you're like, you're good. You've got to make sure that everyone's on the same page. So I think for me it was more making sure that I was prepared, and if I needed to help a teammate be prepared, to look out for them. Especially I think the last 2 Olympics I was captain, so it's a role where you just kind of have to get the vibe of your team. So
were you like scared or nervous because like the whole world was watching?
Nervous, yes, and I always say those nervous butterflies that you have right before maybe test or anything is, 1, it shows that you care, right? And then 2, I was always told if you don't have those, maybe you shouldn't be playing anymore. Because then you're not fully invested, or it's not fear, but you have to be so invested that if you don't accomplish what you want, that it's going to hurt a little bit. And because if it doesn't hurt, then I don't know if you'll be pushing that extra.
How many countries have you traveled to for the Olympics?
Okay, I'll start naming them if you want to count them. Okay, Hungary, Australia, Canada, Mexico, Cuba, Dominican Republic, the Czech Republic, the Netherlands, Greece, Italy, Spain, Brazil, there has to be more, China, England, or the UK.
Already 14.
I think there's a few. Oh, I've been to Qatar. Yeah, I'll tell you. Yeah, it's. Is that it? I think there might be a few missing.
So really long list.
So no, that's just another thing, right? With sports, like it allows you to travel. Like for me, when I was 12 years old, I went to my first Junior Olympics, and it was in Florida. So here I am from this small little city, and I get to travel outside of my city, and getting outside of my city and seeing what else was out there was another motivation for me to do well in school, to be able to go to college and to continue to see things outside of my city. So another great side benefit of playing sports is you usually get to travel to different places.
Which Olympic city was your favorite?
I would say that there isn't a favorite, but I think London and Sydney have a special place in my heart. I don't know if it's because they're English countries, like you speak English there, but I think the volunteers are great, the atmosphere was great, and it might be that one was the first and one was the last, but they were all great in their own way, but those 2 really stick out in my mind.